What's up YouTube? I am super excited today for this new video. I've actually been prepping this for a number of days because it has a dual purpose. The first purpose is to show you guys Proxmox Backup Server and add to my already growing collection of Proxmox videos, which I plan on making more of in the future. So if you're a big Proxmox fan, hang tight because there's going to be more stuff coming. The second reason is because I really want to show off TrueNAS Fangtooth, and we're going to do this in the Instances tab of TrueNAS Fangtooth. So my plan for this video is to show you an instance of Proxmox virtual environment that I've already set up for this. Is a completely blank Proxmox VE. I'm going to then virtualize Proxmox Backup Server in TrueNAS through Incus, both through a virtual machine and through an LXC. And then inside that virtualized instance, I'm going to mount an NFS share from the TrueNAS host so that Proxmox Backup Server could push to a data set that I've got on TrueNAS, which I then back up itself. So it sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually a really, really amazing setup. So we're going to start here on the wiki. Come over here to Proxmox Backup Server, and you're going to see everything we're going to do today. If you've never heard of Proxmox Backup Server and you don't know why you should use it, I was originally just running a backup job from my Proxmox, but it's nowhere near as good as Proxmox Backup Server because Proxmox Backup Server, or PBS from this point forward, allows you to do differential backups with speed up and a whole lot of other really cool things that I was not getting from just doing regular backup jobs on my Proxmox node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this, and I'm running this in production right now. And I absolutely love it. I'm going to show you guys how to set up a bridge so we can get the installation for a VM and for the LXC working. And then I'm going to show you guys how to run the post script from helper scripts. So our Proxmox Backup Server is much cleaner than it would be had we not run it. And then we're going to add a TrueNAS NFS share as the data store pushing out to our TrueNAS host. So and then we're going to show you, of course, how to now add the PBS server to Proxmox. That's going to be our plan. We're going to move forward like that, and we're going to move straight down this wiki. There's a couple things you're going to have to know how to do first, and I'm going to show you guys that right now. So let's jump right in here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a place for Proxmox Backup Server to actually save all of the data that it's going to back up. So I'm going to come over into data sets, and I'm going to add a data set here in Tank. I'm going to call this PBS, Proxmox Backup Server, with generic permissions. So now I'm going to edit these permissions because these permissions are actually wrong. And what I want to do is I want to use a backup user and group, and I want to give them 770. So backup and backup is going to be given full permissions. Nobody else is going to get permissions. I'm going to do apply user, apply group, and I'm just going to hit save. And this is the proper permission set for the Proxmox Backup Server data set path. Should look just like this. Backup, backup, read, write, execute for both these lines. Other gets none. Keeps it nice and safe. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to turn this into a share. So that's just while I have previous highlighted like that, I'm just going to hit create NFS share, and I'm going to only change one thing. I'm going to click advanced options, and I want to change this map root user. I want to map this to root because when I do this externally through an NFS share, it needs to be able to run as root on the host. And that's not a problem. It's not a big deal because it's only this data set that applies to, and it's only going to apply to it from Proxmox Backup Server. Now, there's one more thing I need to do. When I go to instances and I set this up, it's going to get an IP address that's actually unreachable on my network because it's going to be VLAN out. In order to stop that from happening, I need to go to my network. I need to change ENS 18. I need to create a bridge. So let's create this bridge. I need to add a network, and I'm going to call this bridge BR0. Okay, and I'm going to leave all of this just like it is. I'm going to hit save. And now I need to move this IP address from ENS18 to BR0. So let's change this now. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to remove this from ENS18. Save that just like that, and now I'm going to edit BR0. And I'm going to add my bridge member for ENS18, just like that. And I'm going to add my alias 1099.0.191/24, just like that. And I'm going to hit save. There we go. So now ENS18 is a member of bridge 0, and I've got the correct IP address here. So I'm going to click test changes, and I'm going to confirm and hit test change. Just like that. Now, because I've gotten right back to the screen, it works. So I can click Save Changes. I have 55 seconds left. If this didn't work for whatever reason, I wouldn't get the screen, and after 50 seconds, it would undo all my changes, but I want to save changes because it did indeed work. The most important thing here is we want to make sure our name servers and our default route is all still good. This is my router, and these are my name servers that I'm using for DNS. So as long as these are good, I can still reach the internet. So now we're good. We can start actually beginning to set up our instances. So let's come over to instances and let's create a new instance. Now we're going to do this two ways. We're going to do this the virtual machine way, and we're going to do it through an LXC. So let's come over here, Linux container only. So I'm going to call this PBS or Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to say VM, and I'm going to use an ISO image. And I'm going to select ISO. Now you'll see here I already have Proxmox Backup Server listed as an ISO image, but you won't have that. You won't even see that. So what I need you to do is go over to Upload New Image, and you're going to have the option here to upload an ISO you've already downloaded. So to get that ISO, you want to come over here, and you want to click this link, Official Proxmox Downloads page. It'll take you here, and you want to grab the Proxmox Backup Server 3.3 ISO installer. Just download this right here. It'll download the ISO to your hard drive, and then you can go right through TrueNAS and then select where you found it. Now to save some time in this video, I've already done that. So here we are. I'm just going to select the ISO I've already uploaded and downloaded. You can see it show up here, Proxmox Backup Server. This does not require a ton of power. I'm only going to give it one CPU and about 4 gigs of memory, 4 GB. Hit tab. Here we go, 10 gigs in the disk is more than it's going to need. Remember, this is basically just functioning as a container to push a backup to an external storage location. This server isn't really actually going to do a whole lot other than just manage an external NFS mounted share. So don't worry about any of that. So I'm going to keep all the rest of this standard. I'm not going to add any proxy, but I am going to need to add VNC. That port is fine. I'm just going to use a single digit as a password because it doesn't matter. It's just going to make my life easier later. So now that's good. I'm going to hit create. And now it's created my virtual machine. So you'll see here, this is the VNC console. When I click this, I'm going to get a little option to open this with and what I want to open it with. You need to have some sort of remote desktop client, whatever, on your machine to open up VNC. You can go on Google and find like best Windows or Linux VNC client, but what you're looking for is called a VNC client. Because I'm on Linux, I use Remina, so I'm going to use Remina. I'm going to click open right here, and I'm going to drag this little. There we go. That's what it looks like on my screen. So it's asking me for the password. I'm going to enter my password and hit OK. So this is what it looks like now that I'm actually VNC'd into the virtual machine. So I'm going to go ahead and say install Proxmox Backup Manager graphical, just like that. And I'm going to walk you through this installation, but I'm not actually going to do this installation because I'm going to show you guys how to do this once we get to the LXC. So here we are on the beginning of the install of Proxmox Backup Server. I can hit I agree. It's going to pick the 10 gigabyte disk that I gave it. That's fine. I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to keep all these options stock except for the password. I'm going to use an insecure password for testing. You guys use a secure password. I'm also not going to use a real email address because it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to leave all this stock. The only thing you have to remember is on 224. So when I need to log into the machine, it's on 1099.0224. I'm going to hit next. And then after this, I'm going to hit install, and it's going to install all of these things and then reboot after it's done. That's how to install the virtual machine version of Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to pivot now, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it via an LXC, and then I'm going to take over the rest of the configuration from the LXC side. But it doesn't matter if you choose the VM, because no matter what, we're both going to boot into the same screen, which is going to be the web UI for Proxmox Backup Server. So I'm going to close this down. I'm going to destroy what I just made, and then I'm going to start it from an LXC. So I'm going to click X on this. I'm going to click X on this, and now I'm going to go ahead and delete my virtual machine just like that. And now my virtual machine has been deleted. So let's do this from the LXC side. This is particularly fun in my opinion because I think it's amazing. I think the ability to run this as an LXC lightweight container is way, way better than a VM. But anyway, so we're going to start here and we're going to create a new instance from Debian Bookworm, which is the newest version of Debian. So let's come over here, close that out, and I'm going to create a new instance, and I'm going to call this PBS or Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to use a container. I wish right now when we go to the catalog we had the option to select more than these containers, but we don't. The good news is, even though we don't, Proxmox Backup Server is built on top of Debian. So we can just use Debian Bookworm. I'm going to use the default image right here and select that, and we're going to build PBS right into the existing image of Debian they give us. I'm not going to touch anything else here. Everything else is set to bridge automatic, which is great. So I'm just going to create this instance, and it is already up and running. That was not video magic at all. It's already doing its thing. So the next step for our install is to run these commands. Now, you'll see these commands come in this huge block. I'll explain some of these, what these do. All we're going to do is basically add the repo for Debian Bookworm for the Proxmox Backup Server packages we're going to need. We're going to install wget because the instance of Debian that we just installed is very bare bones. It has almost no packages in it at all. And we're going to need things like wget nano and a few other tools. So we're going to install wget, then we're going to get the SSH key, the GPG key for the repo that we just installed. After that, we're going to do a basic app update and upgrade. Then we're going to install a bunch of packages we're going to need. And this is the names here: whiptail, apt-utils, core utils, bash, all these other things. These are just basic things we're going to need to make this work. Then we're going to do another update, and we're going to install the server. I am then using this line to print out what the IP of the server is, and then we have to set a password because, of course, we're not going to use the graphical installer that we just saw in the VM. There will be no graphical installer. We're just going to run the script, and it's going to be done. So I'm going to hit this copy. I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to jump right over here. I'm going to shell into my container, and then I'm just going to hit, blow this up. I'm going to hold down Shift and hit Insert to paste that entire block of text. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to hit Enter, and it's going to start doing everything it needs to do. This is going to take a minute. I'm going to pause this video. There's going to be some things that happen in the middle of the script that you need to interact with, and I'm going to start the video up again when you need to make a selection. And after that, we're just going to jump right to the end. So I'll be right back when this is done installing. Okay, this is going to be the one and only break in the script that we need to interact with. It's asking us basically, what do we want to do about the postfix configuration? And that's basically asking how the mail should work. Right now, we're not going to set up any type of external mail delivery. I'm just going to say local only because we're going to set up notifications at a different time. So I'm going to hit local only, and then it's going to ask me what the system mailer name should be. And it says PBS because I named the instance LXC PBS. So I'm just going to hit enter, and I'll be good with that. So now it's going to go ahead and install Proxmox Backup Server, and I'll jump back on this video when it is done installing. Okay, we are back. The script is done. It takes about 3 minutes to get to this point, so if it's taking much longer than that, maybe something's going on, but don't expect it to really take much less than that. So you'll see here the last two lines of my script. The first thing it tells me is, well, the second to last thing it tells me is https 1099.0.255.8007. This is the address of Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to have to log into this in a minute, but it's also asking me for a password. Now you'll notice when we did the VM install that it asked you to set a password. We didn't have that option here. The script never presents us that, so now we're going to set a password right now. So I'm going to set a new password. It's going to be insecure, but you guys are going to pick a secure one, and we are done. So at this point, we can jump over here, and I'll show you guys this is working. So I'm going to highlight this and then hit Control and Insert to copy it. I'm going to open a new tab, paste, hit Enter. I'm going to accept the risk. This is just a self-signed cert. Here we are. I'm going to log in with root and the name and the password that I just put in the console. And this is Proxmox Backup Server, virtualized in an LXC on Fangtooth. Okay, now we need to add our external data set into our Proxmox Backup Server from our TrueNAS host. Now, using this in an LXC is going to be different than doing it in a VM. In the VM, we created this data set already, and we made it an NFS share, and you can see that the instructions to that are just here. Now, we're not going to need to do that for the Incus LXC because the LXC does not require the host data set to be an NFS share in order to be mounted. So we're going to click over to the second tab, and we only need to do one thing, and that's run this one line from the TrueNAS shell to push the host data set into our Incus container. So I'm just going to copy this whole line. I'm going to need to come out here to my TrueNAS shell, and here's where I'm at. Blow this up, make it a little bigger. So now I need to come back out to the system shell, TrueNAS shell. I'm going to run a sudo su to make sure I am root. And I'm going to paste this command. Now this command needs to be modified just a little bit. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to say there's a couple things you guys need to look at. I'm going to start from the very beginning of the container, of the line. So right here where it says container name, we need to change this. So my container name is PBS. I called mine. Whatever you called yours, make sure you use the right name for your Incus LXC. Now this is to say make dir /backup. I'm going to choose to make a directory called /backup inside of my LXC, and that's where all of the TrueNAS share is going to be mounted to inside the container. So over here, Incus config add PBS, and again, I've already changed this to my container name, which is PBS, but make sure your container name is right here. This source is, and this is where it's going to be on the TrueNAS host. For me, it's mount tank PBS. For you guys, it might be somewhere else. So just make sure this is where it is on your TrueNAS box. The path here needs to match the same path before. So if I do /backup here, it needs to be the same as the /backup here. These two need to match, and then leave shift true. So I'm just going to hit enter, and there we go. It says device, my data set is added to PBS, which is my Incus container. So now I should be able to come into my Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to go into my shell, and I'm going to do a df-h, just like that. And we see here that tank/pbs, this is where it is on my TrueNAS. This is my pool. This is my dataset name, has been mounted to /backup. That's perfect. Now /backup holds my external dataset, so I can start pushing my backups directly to it. Come back over here, we're going to add Datastore. The name, I'm going to call this Datastore TrueNAS because that's where it is. The backing path is on /backup. The reason it's on /backup is that's where I mounted it. So if I slide this over to this thing over here, right, you see this line 1099.0.191 mounting PBS. This on the right side, mounted on, and then this is where it looks like inside the container. So on the host, this is where it is. Inside Proxmox Backup Server, this is where it is. So I take the /backup and I just put it right here to backing path. That's simple. I'm going to click add, and now it's going to say it's running. When I hit details, it's going to do this thing called chunk store create. This is going to run for a little bit. I'm going to close this, and in the background, it's going to run. And that's fine. So let's come back over to the wiki. That's going to take probably 2 or 3 minutes to let it do its thing. It might take longer depending on what you guys are doing. That's perfectly okay. We can move on to the next step even though all that's going on in the background. So now we need to add our PBS. Oh, wait, we have to do one more thing here first. We have to adjust our user permissions. So let's jump over here. What we need to do is go to Configuration, Access Control, add a new user, and then add that user to the data store. So let's come over here. We are going to go to Access Control. User Management is right here. We're going to add a new user. I'm going to call this user PBS. Very creative. I'm going to add an insecure password, and that's okay, because this is just a test, like that. Expire never, that's fine. I'm going to leave everything else the same. I'm just going to give it a name and give it a password and click add. Now I'm going to jump over, well, I'm kind of stuck right now, so I need to wait for this other job to finish. So when you see tasks up here, I can come back in here, and we're at 45%. So what I'm going to do is as far as I can go until we actually have a data store. So I'm going to pause right here, and we're going to jump back on when this is done, and I'll show you how to take the user that I just made and add it to the data store. Okay, my chunk store has been created, and at the end I should see prune job and task okay. This lets me know everything went perfectly well. I can close this window. I've already just created my PBS user, and now I have a data store down here called TrueNAS. This is perfect. This data store is actually an NFS share mounted from the host, which is amazing because now I get all the wonderful benefits of a TrueNAS dataset and ZFS file system and all the wonderful things that brings, like snapshots and replication and offsite backups and all those things from my Proxmox Backup. So we need to do one thing here to make sure we can actually edit this data store. Since we need to go to permissions and we need to add our new user. So let's come over here and add user permission. Our user is going to be PBS at PBS, and our role is going to be data store admin. These are the only changes we're going to make. We're going to hit add, and this is what we should see. From this point forward, we are done on Proxmox Backup Server. It is basically configured enough to go. You guys are going to want to come in here and probably do some prune and some garbage collection jobs. You can add a verify job. There's a lot of other cool things you can do in here. You can watch some other videos in Proxmox Backup Server to figure out where you kind of want to set your jobs. But from this point forward, it's actually good enough to go. We don't have to do anything else. So now let's make our Proxmox VE, our Proxmox node, talk to our Proxmox Backup Server. Jumping back up here, that we're on this section here, add Proxmox Backup Server to Proxmox. Let me slide that down like that. There we go. So now we need to navigate to Proxmox VE, click Data Center, then Storage. So let's go. I set this up just for the purposes of doing this. This is not my actual Proxmox node because I already have my Proxmox Backup Server set up in mine. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it fresh. So we're going to come over here, and we are going to click Data Center, then Storage. Data Center, Storage. Here we go. We're going to want to add, and all the way down here, you'll see Proxmox Backup Server. I'm going to click that. The ID, we can name this anything we want. I'm just going to call it PBS. I'm not going to capitalize it. The server. This is going to be the address of Proxmox Backup Server. So in my case, Proxmox Backup Server is here. There it is. My username. Now remember, this is the new user I just added to the data store. So it's PBS, in my case, at PBS, or whatever you named yours at PBS. I have to use my password here and my data store. The data store is the name of the data store I just made. So you'll see here my data store name is here. And of course, my logon name is this right here. So if you're wondering where those values come from, that's it. So my data store is called TrueNAS. I'm I'm going to come back over here. It is called TrueNAS, just like that. And we need to do one more thing. It's going to ask me for this thing called a fingerprint. Where do I get that? I'm going to come over to Proxmox Backup Server, hit my dashboard, and right here, this PBS uptime right here, and this clock says they show fingerprint. I'm going to copy this value, hit OK, come back over here, and then paste my fingerprint just like that. I'm now going to hit add. So there we go. Now, you'll see over here, PBS is our target. So if we wanted to create any kind of a backup, for example, so when I go to data center and then backup, I can add a backup job for my node, my schedule for every night, for example. Let's do every day at 2100, that's fine. Select mode, I'm going to say all. And then it's going to ask me a notification, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. And I'm going to hit. So here's where I change. After I go up my node as PVE, you'll see here, I can change my storage from local to PBS. So that's what I want to do. Proxmox Backup, hit OK. So now we have my node for PVE running every single night for everything on this entire server, storing on PBS. So what did I just do? Long story short, I created a share on my TrueNAS machine called PBS right here. And you'll see it's got a little bit of information in it already. And this is on an NFS share. On the TrueNAS side, I would put some data protection here. I probably want to snapshot and replicate this by making a snapshot task just to make sure this data is safe. So then I connected this to my Proxmox Backup Server over an NFS share and then added it as a data store. And then I connected this data store to my Proxmox machine through my data center and storage options. So now it shows up here, and I created a backup job that's going to push all my backups to PBS. So that, in a nutshell, is how I got Proxmox Backup Server up and running on TrueNAS Fangtooth with both VM and LXC Incus compatibility. So this has been a really exciting thing to do. It took me a long time to prep this video because I ran into a lot of problems. And if you guys have any questions, please leave comments in the video below, in the comment board below. Please, if you have very technical comments, because this was kind of a technical demonstration, jump on Discord and post a ticket in the support forum. If you want to say thank you, please buy me a coffee, and I thank you guys so much. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Let your friends know we're doing this. This is a really amazing thing that I get to do, and I've had a ton of fun learning how to set this up on the new edition of TrueNAS. So I hope you guys like watching, and I'll see you on the next video.